Welcome to another special edition, How to Write the Essay short video segment. In this one, I will explain what I want you to do for the second of two essays for this Summer Philosophy 160 class. What I'll do is, as before, walk through the handout and point out the main points, the things that it's really important to focus on as you write this essay. And I think it should be about as easy as writing the first essay. It's similar, and that I'm having you apply two approaches from the book. It turns out anytime I talk at the screen, Rabbit appears. Two approaches from the book to a single social behavior of your choice. So again, verb tenses in pandemic land aside, the handout should be posted right above where this video segment is posted in the module called Essay Number 2. Hopefully you got a chance to read that, and I will now call up that, and we won't have to look at Rabbit trying to hog the screen here as I share the handout for Essay Number 2 and just walk through it as I did before and tell you exactly what I'm looking for when you write this essay. All right, so you'll see in this essay, what you are going to do is pick a social behavior or social phenomenon of your choice. On the first essay, I had you pick two theories. This one, I want you to just pick one social behavior or social phenomenon. Now, if that doesn't make sense, just pay attention to the videos, lectures on chapters 5 and 7 there, where I used lots of examples of those sorts of things. And you will see on this handout, I have lots of examples on the handout as well. Again, it's kind of a longish handout. That's mostly because I tried to include a bunch of examples. You don't have to choose from them. You can. I put a bunch of examples on there just to generate ideas. I think that when you read through a whole bunch of examples, you go, oh, that or something like it, or maybe it'll trigger something in your mind. And in fact, this might be something you just sort of put on the back burner. Pay attention to the world around you as you're navigating your way through this post-pandemic land now, or able to go out in person more now. And when you see people doing something kind of confusing, that might be a topic for this essay. So it's any kind of social behavior. So again, I have examples here on the handout. You might choose to analyze some large scale social structure or belief like a religious practice or a political or economic movement. Certainly, we covered a couple of examples like that in talking about social explanations and understandings in chapters 5 and 7 in our book. There are certainly features of capitalism, our democracy, when it succeeds and or nearly fails. And certainly a lot of examples from religious practices and beliefs are common in the social sciences. So there's those. You might also go a little smaller scale. Here I put, why do people shop excessively? Now, I suppose during the pandemic, we shopped excessively on Amazon, but when we get back into the human world, certainly, I wonder what next Christmas will look like. Probably Black Friday, I'll have people pummeling one another to get cheap TVs at Walmart again. So anyway, something like Black Friday is a social behavior or social phenomenon that's worth explaining. Why do we go camping? That's a weird thing. That's kind of a new thing in history. People didn't always camp. Now it's a thing that people do. They go out and sleep on the ground for 3 days in a remote place just to tell themselves that they're getting away from their city life existence or whatever. Why do we watch sports? Think about that. That's an odd thing. There's people playing a game and millions of people will tune in to watch them play a game. Why was Donald Trump elected to president in 2016? Social scientists are still wrestling with this one, even though we have a competent person in the White House now. Here's a guy who had no experience and really no intelligence and somehow found his way into the White House. There are other things here. People react after mass shootings to go out and buy weapons, big political movements like the Arab Spring. I was thinking of, bad vampire movies that become popular. Why did people race out and buy toilet paper, when the pandemic began? Any conspiracy theory can be a lot of fun to try to explain. You're probably well aware right now that there are people who believe that vaccines have tracking devices in them that the government implanted there. that there's an invasion of aliens that are lizard people who've taken over some of our high-ranking political movements. There was a theory that Barack Obama was actually an alien lizard. So anything you get off QAnon, is really interesting to try to analyze, because on the surface, those are worse than unlikely claims about the world, and yet large numbers of people tend to believe them. So you will describe your social behavior or phenomenon at some length. Again, you're just choosing one this time, but I do want you to tell me quite a bit about it. Assume that I don't really know what it is. If you want to explain something like, the rush on toilet paper or why there are sports fans, go on for a page. Just tell me about the practice itself. What are people doing? Now, once you've done that, once you've established the description of your social behavior or your social belief, you will apply these two approaches that, depending on when you're watching this video, we will have covered by the time you can write this paper. The first one is chapter 5, the Durkheim approach. So here it is. You will explain the behavior or practice according to this functionalist structuralist approach in chapter 5. And Durkheim is the primary character there. Now, here's where, again, I said this with the first paper. I'll say it again with this one. Do not Google Durkheim in an effort to find out what his approach is. Not because I want you to do things the hard way. It will not help you. It will not help you to Google Durkheim. You will find all kinds of information that has nothing to do with the approach in our social science book. Use our book and the video lectures on chapter 5. In those lectures, if you've watched them, you will remember I explain step by step how you apply the Durkheim approach. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and then you get your explanation, right? So you'll remember that if you watch those videos. Rely heavily on the book and the lectures on Durkheim, and you will not be steered awry on this one. So explain according to Durkheim. You're going to want to, again, tell me a little bit about Durkheim. First, you want to say, this is the way that Durkheim approaches explaining a social behavior or phenomenon. Now, if Durkheim were going to try to explain my example, this is what I think he would say. Now, I do put on the handout here, there might be some guesswork here. The Durkheim approach is funny. You may have gathered that if you've watched the videos already. In that, one is sort of guessing at the cause of certain social behaviors. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about if you make the wrong guess. What I want to see is that you explain to me Durkheim's approach accurately and that you apply it in some convincing way, as if you know how it's supposed to work. Whether you get the same answer I would get or not, it does not matter. I just want to see you apply Durkheim's method as Durkheim would apply it. So you'll produce, according to Durkheim, an explanation for your social phenomenon or your social behavior. Next, you will move on to the Wittgenstein-Wunsch approach. That's not what it's called in the book. That's what I'm calling it. You'll remember that chapter 7 addresses at great length Ludwig Wittgenstein's meaning-based approach to understanding, and then Wunsch's attempt to take Wittgenstein's approach and apply it to the social sciences. Again, in those lecture segments on chapter 7, I explain at great length how one applies that approach and produces an understanding of the social belief or behavior. So again, what you're going to want to do here is tell me about the Wittgenstein-Wunsch approach to understanding. Tell me that first, and then say, if somebody's going to take this approach to my example, my social behavior that I'm addressing in this essay, here's what they would say about it. So again, it's similar to the first paper in that you're doing these two theoretical approaches. It differs from the first paper in that you only have one social behavior to work with. You're not working with two theories as you did in that one. And lastly, what I want you to do is compare and contrast the two approaches. What you'll find, I think, is that one of them probably works a little better than the other one, depending on what example that you've chose. You might decide that they both give you different interesting perspectives and that some combination of the two is best. Again, I don't really care what you decide. I just want to know what you think you've garnered from applying these two approaches to the example you have at hand. So you can decide anything you want. I just want you to reflect on what it reveals about the social behavior that you're talking about and about these two approaches. Now, I also have in this paragraph here, a reference to chapter 11. You could easily write this essay before you get to chapter 11. It's really the material in chapter 7 that is the approach you'll be applying here with this Wittgenstein-Wunsch approach. But since chapter 11 also engages in that approach with a different subject, but beliefs and behaviors in different cultures, you might also find examples there. So don't make too much of this paragraph here unless you're interested in writing about a behavior in a different culture. Certainly you'll find lots of examples here. I talked at great length about Evans Pritchard's study of the Azandi. I don't know if you know this, or David Hasselhoff was a third-rate American actor who was cherished as a great singer in Germany. His voice is actually quite horrible. For some reason, the Germans think that's what singing is supposed to sound like. And so, different people have different sort of beliefs and practices in different cultures. It turns out, I mentioned this in a lecture, that alien abductions are mostly an American thing. There's something about American culture that makes us claim to the tune of about 10,000 a year that we're abducted by aliens. As I said, either aliens are not interested in anybody other than Americans, or there's something about American culture that makes us believe we're being abducted by aliens. And something like bowling is a really idiosyncratic behavior. I can think of a few things as boring as sort of rolling a ball at 10 pins and hoping to knock down the most of them. Golf is an odd thing too, just hitting a ball a great distance and trying to get it to fall into a small hole. These are odd sports or pastimes that we engage in that might be worthy of focus for explanation and understanding. All right. Again, just a whole bunch of examples. Why do people join gangs? Why do people drive SUVs? The SUV is a very impractical vehicle, especially in the age of environmentalism when we're trying to conserve resources. Why do people obsessed on text messaging? Pokemon Go was a big hit. Any kind of fad thing is really kind of fun to talk about. Why are we obsessed with our phones? Why do we follow the lives of celebrities? Who cares? Why do we shop at mass markets like Walmart? Why do we go to dance clubs and dance pre-pandemic and probably again pretty soon? Joining fraternities. Who cares about the Kardashians? Why are people waiting for the apocalypse? It hasn't happened. Why do people watch people drive in circles 500 times to see who can do it the fastest? Why do people get so involved in their sports teams that they're fans of that they cry if they change cities? And social scientists are having a fun time trying to explain the January 6th insurrection, things like that too. So again, what I have here, the reason this is such a lengthy handout, is I'm trying to just lob out a whole bunch of considerations to try to generate ideas in your head. Don't make too much of the lengthy treatment here. It's just my way of, as I did on the first handout, trying to generate ideas. Again, as on the first handout, what I have here is the sort of, cut to the chase bullet point treatment. Whatever you do, you should describe at some length the social phenomenon or behavior to be explained or understood. You should tell me about Durkheim and what his approach would produce. You should tell me about Wittgenstein and what his approach should produce. And then you should tell me what you think about this. And again, I said this on the first essay, I'll say it again in connection to this essay. In talking about Durkheim and Wittgenstein, please just use our book and the lecture segments where I describe those approaches. If you try to use other sources, whether Google or even other books or anything else, it will lead you astray. Wittgenstein was a linguistic philosopher with a great diversity of views about how one understands the world around them. Our book is interested in just one of them. And so you might find all kinds of irrelevant things, and so too with Durkheim. It will not serve you well to consult other sources. Just our book, just the lectures that I've posted for chapters 5 and 7 are the ones in which you'll find this. Again, the essay should be 4 or so pages, double space, standard fonts and margins. I didn't put double space on the first handout. I'm sorry, I got a lot of emails. Friday, July 2nd is the last day of the summer session there. So that's when the essay is done. Do submit it through Canvas, assignments, essay number 2. So again, hopefully having walked through the handout in a short video segment is helpful. Again, I think if you're confused by either of those descriptions of the approaches that I want you to take in the essay, the thing to do is going to be to go back and watch those video segments for chapters 5 and chapter 7. because in those video lectures, what I do is say, if you're going to take this approach to any social behavior or phenomenon, step 1, do this, step 2. So you'll remember this if you watch them. So I explain what those approaches are in gruesome length. I'm sorry the length is gruesome, but you know, it's a summer class. It's supposed to be sort of labor intensive. And so hopefully between the book and the lectures and that sort of concise description of what I want you to do there, this should be an easy essay to write as the first one was. Again, you're not going to do excessive research unless you want to look into a little bit about social behavior that you're describing. Aside from that, you can stick with course material and write these essays. Again, if you have any questions or anything, you can email me. I have been pretty good about keeping up on emails this summer session here. Still sort of pandemic land, so not a whole lot to go out and do yet, but that should change quickly before we get to the fall. Who knows what's going to happen to the fall? There's variants now. There's no point in predicting how things are going to go in the future. Roll with it as it comes. So I will watch emails if there's anything, and then there's just the return to the natural science book for next week. I put the social science stuff a little earlier there in the semester so we could get it out of the way. That would give you a little extra time to write this essay, and that way it's due on the last day. So we're done with so depending on when you're watching this again, you should be just about done with the social science book, and just one more week, and then call it a summer class. All right. Good enough for this. Brief, it wasn't so brief, was it? Intermission video segment on how to write essay number 2. Call that good enough.